Yeah, yeah. No, totally. Stop me. Okay, I will take about 30 seconds to offer respects to my spiritual teachers. Om Ajnanatinandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. A quick question to the esteemed audience. Did any one of you read the book by the name of Srimad Bhagavatam? Can I have a show of hands? Okay, maybe about 30%. Did you all read the whole thing, or you just read a little bit? Who read the whole thing? Okay, how many of you read a little bit of the book? Yes.
I read every day.
Who reads every day? Oh, who said every day? Me too. Oh, you too. Okay. We're in the daily Bhagavatam club. How many of you have heard the story of Prahlad? Little Prince Prahlad? Okay. Okay, about half, even more than half the crowd. Okay, very well. Where did you hear the story? You're hiding behind the post. Where did you hear the story?
From my father.
Ah, from your father. Who's your father?
He's called Ram Raghav Prabhu.
Is he here?
He must be upstairs.
He's upstairs. All right. What did you like about the story?
That Prahlad Maharaj, whatever Hiranyakashipu did, Prahlad Maharaj, he didn't do like he was not angry again on.
Oh, don't say anything more. You just said the whole lecture. Now you're way too far back there, so you couldn't hear him. But you notice how. So in the Bhagavatam we have this very famous story of a boy who was to become a prince. When coming of age, and his father the king. And his father was a very, very crooked, how did you translate crooked? Individual. Yeah, okay, yeah. Like twisted in his mind. As a matter of fact, this person is described in the Bhagavatam to be the greatest of all demons ever. Very demonic person. There was a clash of interests between the son and the father, between the little prince and the father, the king. And the clash of interest was that the king was it was a very evil person, a personification of evil. And he wanted his son to become an evil materialist. And his son had no interest in it. And anyhow, they clashed a lot. And his father hired some people to teach him how to be a very good evil materialist. But despite this, the boy remained true to himself. What is very interesting, to be so little and have so much integrity. And as the story goes on, his father even tried to harm him, not just spank him on the butt. it came to the point that he actually attempted to murder his own son. I mean, very extreme move. But what's interesting that no matter what the father did to the son, what's your name?
Ninad. Ninad.
Nirad.
Ninad.
Ninad.
Yeah.
Ninad. What does that mean?
The sound of flowing water.
Ninad. Never heard before. Sounds really nice. And the Ninad noticed when he was hearing this story that the boy, even though he was being abused by the father, some or other never hated the father. Very interesting. And that's the topic of this presentation tonight. I will make a really outrageous claim, probably agitating everyone, and then I'll try to make a sense out of it. And I assume that you will find this not only entertaining, but also useful. And I hope that by the end, the usefulness of this group think today will become obvious. You got it? So the claim is that only the ignorant have enemies. And I will now read. In other words, the claim is that no one has enemies. And it's an interesting thing that this came from a boy who's being abused. A primordial case of child abuse. So what I'll do, I will read 2 verses from the Bhagavatam and 2 very short commentaries on these 2 verses. For those who care, this is 7th canto, 8th chapter, text 9 and 10. So, text 9 says, Prahlad Maharaj continued. So, in other words, the Prince Prahlad has been already speaking something to his father, and now he's saying the following. My dear father, please give up your demoniac mentality. I guess this is a good advice any time of day. Do not discriminate in your heart between enemies and friends. Make your mind equipoised toward everyone, except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind. There is no enemy within this world. So this is the prince saying in the book. Then he also says, when one sees everyone on the platform of equality, one then comes to the position of worshipping Krishna perfectly. So, does anyone remember anything from what I just read? Yes?
In the heart, we should not distinguish between
friends and enemies. So, in the heart, we should not distinguish friends from enemies. Interesting. Anyone else remembers anything else?
Give up the demonic mentality.
Give up demonic mentality. Very well. Very interesting. Because practically what the prince is saying, that to think in this set of terms of friends and enemies has made his crazy father crazy. Because the crazy king saw his boy as an enemy, he's turned into an animal, a vicious animal. And Prahlad is not wanting to make the same mistake. Very interesting. remembers anything else? I know it's in the afternoon and it says, one who does this, in other words, does not see friends and enemies, but actually has an equal vision, worships Krishna how? Perfectly. Oh, you're good. We have one attentive, so it's just two of us talking. Forget about the rest. Just joking. Yes.
I mean, from your claim, it's clear that one should not have enemies. Yeah, but definitely there will be friends, right? Because Krishna is our best friend.
Okay, could we save the questions for the end? Is it okay? Yeah. Just so we don't, because it might be answered by the end of the presentation, yeah. But that's a good one. Okay, now Srila Prabhupada wrote a short commentary to this. And he writes, unless one is able to fix the mind on the lotus feet of Krishna, the mind is impossible to control, as Arjuna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Chanchala hi mana Krishna paramati balavat dridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayor iva sudushkaram. That is, for the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate and very strong. O Krishna, and to subdue it, it seems to me, is more difficult than controlling the wind. End quote. The only bona fide process for controlling the mind is to fix the mind by service to the Lord. We create enemies and friends according to the dictation of the mind, but actually there are no enemies and friends. So this is not me saying this, I'm just reading what the Bhagavatam says and then what Srila Prabhupada is saying. I mean, really, outrageous statements, you could say. Pandita Samadarshinaha Samah Sarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labate Param. To understand this is the preliminary condition for entering into the kingdom of devotional service. This is a statement from the Bhagavad Gita, 1854. Sarva Bhuteshu Samah Sarva Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labate Param. In Sanskritam, Sama means what? Equality, same. Sama means same, equal. So Sama, Sarveshu, one who is equal to all beings, doesn't discriminate, has fulfilled the preliminary qualification for transcendence or spiritual life. So that is just a preliminary qualification. So now we'll read one more verse, the following verse from the Bhagavatam and the purport, and then I'll try to explain all of this. The verse says, in former times there were many fools like you. This is Prince, little boy talking to his crazy father. In former times there were many fools like you who did not conquer the 6 enemies that steal away the wealth of the body. These fools were very proud, thinking, I have conquered all enemies in all the 10 directions. But if a person is victorious over the 6 enemies and is equipoised toward all living entities, for him there are no enemies. Enemies are merely imagined by one in ignorance. Did you get all of that? Yes. Okay, so you can just translate the last sentence, which is, enemies are merely imagined. You know what imagination is? So, yeah. So enemies are, you know what means merely? Merely imagined. Only imagined. By one in ignorance. So I'm giving one lecture and Munindra is giving another. Just joking. We're close friends, so we can do this. Let's see at the end who gave better lecture. Oh, God knows, you may have a third one in Russian. But you're all good devotees, so I'm sure your lectures will be very good. Okay, so purport, short purport Prabhupada wrote here. He says, in this material world, everyone thinks that he has conquered his enemies, not understanding that his enemies are his uncontrolled mind and five senses. Mana shashtanindriyani prakritistani karshati. That's a quote from Bhagavad Gita in Sanskrit. In this material world, everyone has become a servant of his senses. Originally, everyone is a servant of Krishna. Krishna, by the way, is just another name for God. Originally, everyone is a servant of Krishna, but in ignorance, one forgets this. And thus, one is engaged in the service of Maya, illusion, through lusty desires, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and jealousy. Everyone is actually dependent on the reactions of material laws, but still one thinks himself independent and thinks that he has conquered all directions. In conclusion, one who thinks that he has many enemies is an ignorant man, whereas one who is in Krishna consciousness knows that there are no enemies but those within oneself, the uncontrolled mind and senses. So, what is really interesting here, that this comes directly from a person, a boy, by the way, who's here considered a hero. And this person is hero for varieties of reasons. One reason is that he maintained his integrity. You know what integrity is? How did you translate that?
I wasn't so far.
Oh, you didn't get that far. How do you say integrity in German? Oh, same word, yeah. One reason why he was a great hero here, he maintained his integrity despite the tremendous pressure from his father. The other reason is that despite this intense situation where he's being attacked, physically attacked even, by his own father, he does not think of his father in terms of division of friends and enemies, because he thinks that his father made that mistake, and he's thinking, I will not make that mistake. And I don't know if you ever tried to do this, but this requires a tremendous amount of strength. Now, in order to understand this, we have to have the vision that this boy, Prahlad, is having. In the pages of the Bhagavatam, Prahlad is described as a self-realized person, even though just a boy. and he has a Krishna conscious or a spiritual vision. And this is a cosmic vision. In this cosmic vision, there is a purpose to our existence. And we are here for a reason. And that reason is that we are here to learn something. Well, I guess we're here to learn a lot of things. One of the things we're here to learn is to be morally pure souls. That we are here to learn to be of a pure consciousness, to have pure intention, and that we have a grand vision. And the grand vision is that this whole world has an educational purpose. That whatever takes place in this world, it happened for a reason. And in the very least, the reason is to learn something from it. And one of the lessons is to not discriminate between friends and enemies in a particular fashion. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada, the founder of the Hare Krishna movement, described this world as a correctional institution. Do you know what a correctional institution is? What's a German word for it?
Institution.
Yeah. Do you know what's the legal term? Jail. Prison. But we forget that prison is a correctional institution. Actually, in America, you call that a correctional facility, where people don't just get thrown to suffer, but they're put there with an attempt to correct something about these people. Because they lived out with the rest of the population, and they've done some horribly bad things, and so there is a need to separate them from the further opportunities to do the same evil thing, but in the process of which they ought to correct themselves. So it is an educational institution. So Srila Prabhupada compared this world to a jail, to a correctional institution. We come here to learn something, and that is the grand vision. And in Krishna consciousness, we have interesting concepts. Like, for example, we have a concept of karma. And karati means to do. But you see, you can never separate an action from its consequences. So when you speak of an action, you have to speak of the consequences. As a matter of fact, it is the basic ignorance to claim to know the nature of an act without understanding the consequences of the act. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna calls this action in ignorance, where you act and you're unaware of the consequences of the act. So when we speak of karma or doing, we are also thinking of the consequences of that act. And some consequences are immediate, and some are remote. And so because we act in a particular way, a lot of the things that happen to us in the future are the results of the things we have done in the past or the present. And so in Krishna consciousness, a person, a yogi, a devotee, is taking opportunity to learn from whatever happens. Of course, whatever happens, we may deal with it. If you hurt your leg, you go to a doctor. It's not that you sit there and, what am I supposed to learn from this? No, you go to a doctor and then later on you think about life, the purpose of life, perhaps why this happened, and so on. So, nearly everything that happens to us could be seen as a product of karma. Then, in the Bhagavad Gita, we also hear that there are 5 factors of action. In other words, the results of an action are defined by 5 different factors. And one of these factors is also said to be divine element. And divine element means God, some sort of a destiny. We could even call it karma and so on. And I will not go into details, but this also tells us that there is more to an incident than it meets the eye. Do you know what that means? There's more to an incident than it meets the eye. How would you say that in German? Let's help Munindra.
Das ist
yeah, it's difficult to. I speak 2 languages, but I cannot translate.
Es gibt viel mehr zu Punkt. Es gibt viel mehr zu Punkt.
Ja, nur das sind da halt Begebenheiten, die nicht offensichtlich sind, die man nicht sofort erkennt.
Wo mehr dazugehört als nur das Sehen. Wo mehr dazugehört als nur das bloße Sehen mit den Augen.
Ja, genau.
Okay. Okay, we got it. So, in order to illustrate this, I'll tell 2 quick stories, both from the Bhagavatam. And I don't know if you noticed, but I'm trying to sell a lot of Bhagavatam sets, and after the lecture, I'm just joking. But it is an awesome book. It's one of those books you buy once in your lifetime, and you keep it for you and everyone who comes after you. It's a book of wisdom. First, I will give the story of Vidura. Anyone remembers Vidura from the Bhagavatam? Can you just have a show of hands? Vidura. So. Okay. So many. Okay. Well, Vidura was at a court where a lot of evil things were perpetrated by the king. Again, these kings, man. And the king was abusing 5 children of his own brother, because they were supposed to inherit the throne, and he was very much attached to keeping the throne to himself. Same old story, always the same thing. And so Vidura was a very wise person, and he was elderly, so he wasn't a child. He was a person established socially in the society. And then in one point, after trying so many times to warn the 5 brothers and to give a good advice to the king, he gave up. And I remember I was just a teenager when I was reading this, and I couldn't understand what was he saying. And what he said was that the acts of illusion are supreme, I'm leaving. The acts of illusion are supreme, so I'm leaving. Like he gave up on the whole thing and he just left. And I was thinking, I thought God is supreme. Why would the acts of illusion be supreme? But this is a person who has a holistic vision. You see, in Krishna consciousness, our vision is a monistic vision. Mono means one. We see everything as one unit. And in this unit, even the witch has its job to do. Even the illusion has its job to do. And so he did his best to do the right thing. But somehow or other, whatever he tried to do, he couldn't. And so he had this divine vision that, okay, it seems like illusion at the moment is supreme and there's nothing I can do. This must be God's will. And he took off. But it's interesting how he first dealt with the situation. Like he didn't, when he saw the evil things, he didn't say, oh, this is God's will. Let the evil be. No, as a matter of fact, he tried to curb the evil. But when he explored all of his options, he concluded, I have nothing else to do. This must be God's will. He had a cosmic vision. And the other example I'll give you, which is more illustrating, I would say, is the example of Dharma the bull. Does anyone remember Dharma the bull? Bull by the name of Dharma. From the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Can I see show of hands who remembers at least a little something? I won't be quizzing you, don't worry. Oh, hardly anyone. That's not good. Okay, so I guess I'll have to tell a bit of this story. So in this story, there is a bull, and this bull is standing on one leg, and the three legs of this bull are beaten. They're broken, they're bloody, and he's standing on one leg. And then a local king comes. Now, this king is a good one. Now we have a good king. King Parikshit comes, and as a king, especially in those days, king's duty was to protect all praja. And praja means all citizens of the kingdom, which includes the animals. Even if an animal is abused, the king's duty is to protect it and to punish the miscreants. And so Parikshit, the king, he arrived onto the scene. And what did he find? He found the bull beaten up. And then he found another person looking really dark and evil. And he had a club in his hand. And the club was bloody. I mean, you connect the dots, right? Everything is clear. But what's interesting, he didn't rush with the conclusion. By the way, unsophisticated people have a tendency to rush with conclusions rather than to thoroughly investigate a matter. Like in the case of gossip. Gossip almost always means no investigation. Let's just hang somebody. Do you know what it means to hang? Let's just hang somebody. That's gossip. There's no investigation. People love to do this. But the king actually took time and he turned towards the bull and he asked the bull, "What is happening? Who has done this to you? Who has done this to you?" And the bull said, "It is difficult to say." And when the king heard this, he said, "Wow, who are you? You're so elevated. You must be Dharma personified." And then it is explained, I will not tell you the rest of the story because this is the only part that's interesting to me right now for this presentation. He said it is difficult to say. Why? At least for one reason, and that is that there are immediate and remote causes for everything. Do you know what suspenders are? Suspenders, you know, I haven't seen anyone wear that, but when I was a child, we used to wear suspenders. You know, those elastic things that keep your pants? Hosenträger. Hosenträger. They used to wear them in the Alps. Oh yeah, in Germany also. It's part of the traditional, right? They have, yeah. With the button here, and that keeps the pants from. So, this is the secret, dear devotees. Hosenträger. Just joking. When I was a child, my mother wanted to buy me these suspenders. And because we lived in a small town where there were no shops, she gave money to another woman who went to the town anyways and bought those suspenders for me. And then for years, I was saying to everyone how this other woman bought the suspenders for me. My mother didn't like it because she felt that she bought them. No, I bought them. I gave her the money to buy these suspenders for me. So the question is, who bought the suspenders? You see, there's the immediate cause and there's the remote cause. So the immediate person who bought them was this other woman. But really, one who bought the suspenders was the one who ordered them and paid for them. That was my mother. Or like mafia hits. You order a hit, you know what mafia hit is? Mafia hit. It's a murder by mafia. Yeah, like they pay someone to kill someone. So definitely the person who pulled the trigger is the murderer. But the real murderer is the one who ordered it. So like this, we say that in this world, there is the immediate cause and there is the remote cause of everything. And we say something which is also philosophically troubling, but anyhow, we'll see if anyone comes with that question. But we say that ultimately God is the ultimate remote cause. And when the bull was asked, who did it? Who bought the suspenders? The bull said, it is difficult to say. Because he was thinking of immediate cause and the remote cause. So yes, at the surface level, there are friends and enemies. But in the ultimate sense, we're all here just to learn something. In the ultimate sense, there are no enemies. The only enemy is a soul in ignorance who doesn't want to learn anything. This is a great message. I mean, I know you may not agree with this, but anyhow, it may make sense to you. But this is a claim from the Krishna conscious perspective. There are immediate and there are remote causes. And at the face value, there are enemies. But looking at it remotely, there is the only one enemy. And this is we ourselves. I know we're not in America, but maybe some of you have seen that old cartoon of that what was the name? I forget now. No, not Mickey Mouse. It's around that time too. Something, I can't remember the name. Anyway, Winnie the Pooh. Yeah, you remember that? Yeah, and he was known for saying, "We have found the enemy, and the enemy is us." You must have read some of the Bhagavatam. So in this sense, you see how the boy Prahlad did not allow himself to fall onto this animalistic platform. You have done something to me, you're my enemy. Because from Krishna consciousness point of view, there's only one goal in life. And this is to develop divine love, Krishna Prema. And everything in this world, believe it or not, it's not meant to be an enemy. But it's actually here, somehow or other, to push us through a filter, purifying filter, so that we come out on the other side pure. So Prahlad would not allow himself to hate his father. And for it, he was glorified forever. He wasn't stupid. He knew his father was an evil person, spiritually very ill, and very dangerous. But he would not hate him. As it's stated in Christianity, hate the sin, not the sinner. So like this, in Krishna consciousness, we say that it's actually a demonic worldview to divide people into friends and enemies. That rather one should have a spiritual vision, sama darshina, sama sarveshu bhuteshu, that is the qualification, then bhakti labate param. Such a person may attain divine devotion. Devotion unto God. one who has the equal vision, despite the fact that someone may be pleasant or unpleasant towards us. Okay, let me see if I've forgotten something. Well, there's a story of Avanti Brahmana, but it's 3 o'clock, so I won't read it. Would anyone like to agree with me? Just joking. Any questions or comments, perhaps? If there are, it's not that you have to have, but if there are, we can spend a few minutes entertaining that. Yes. Do we have a microphone or that goes around so that everyone else can hear it? Or you can speak loud enough?
I'll try until the phone comes. You shared about Vidura?
Vidura, yes.
Yes. So he was trying his best for some time.
Yes, he was trying his best for some time.
And then at one point he decided it's not possible to change this, and then he left. So my question is, can we also learn something from that event? In how much do we try our best, and at what point?
In which point to give up?
Yes.
Unfortunately, we cannot. Just from that one incident, I don't think it's possible. Because I have had that question every time I needed to make that decision. And we do find ourselves in that position often. You know, if you have a friendship, if a friendship goes really bad, I mean, which point do you give up? Or let's take up what I think is a really good example, at least it spoke to me a lot. Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada. So he started the movement in India. And he was starting to have a lot of success. And then there was some problem, and then he gave up. And I was thinking, why did he give up at that point? Like, why didn't he give up earlier or later? Or maybe, what if he didn't give up at all? And the same thing you find when Srila Prabhupada was together with devotees buying what is nowadays Toronto Temple in Canada. Prabhupada wanted to buy it, and then they were asking for so much money, you know. And then Prabhupada said, no, we'll give up. We'll give up, and Prabhupada said, you know, we're devotees. The goal of life is not to work really, really hard just to make money, even to buy a temple. And then 10 minutes later, he slammed his fist and said, no, we'll buy. Now it'd be interesting to ask Prabhupada, like, what, you know, precisely how did he decide? Because what's interesting, at least what I have found in my own life, that when you push yourself as hard as you can, for God's sake, you can push yourself still a little more. And even after that, you can push yourself even a bit more. I mean, there is a relatively famous experiment, very cruel experiment though, with rats. Like they put a rat in a bucket with water, so the rat cannot jump out, and the rat is just treading water, and then in one point it drowns. And then they repeat, I mean, it's a brutal experiment, sorry for it. And then they repeat the experiment. You know, God knows how many times they repeated this experiment. But in the other set of experiments, you know, after some hours, they pull the rat out, give it a break, and then put it back in. And as long as the rat has a semblance of faith that he will survive, he treaded water, I forget for how many days, as opposed to just a few hours. I mean, I was a soldier. Yes?
He was taken out?
Yeah, he was taken out, so that was a break, you know. And then he was put back in. And that gave him hope that somebody will pick him out again. You follow? And so as long as he was hopeful, he continued to tread water. And treaded water for days, as opposed to just a few hours in the first case. I was a soldier by some universal error. Yeah, when I was 19, I was a soldier, 1920. And actually, I was in combat, somewhere or other. I ended up in combat. I mean, you won't believe when someone wants to kill you. You can jump over a wall. You can fly over walls. I mean, you can run so fast. You're capable of doing things otherwise you could never do. So that, you see, that makes the case so much more difficult, because you never know whether you have really given your all. But Vedura did in one point conclude, I think I have nothing else to do, this must be God's will. And what this does is that it puts you into this internal, in this state of internal moral reasoning, where you want to give up, and then you give yourself reasons why you want to give up. And if you're really pure, your reasoning will be very pure. And if you're not very pure, then your selfishness will influence your decisions, which will then influence your life. And then when you reflect on those incidences, you will make spiritual progress. Because you will notice something that was spiritually lacking about your decisions. Like that. And I personally, this is just my opinion, but I don't think that in these cases there is ever a clear-cut formula. But this is one of those situations where you're put to test every time. And by struggling with these situations, you're sort of in a fire of purification. Because you become so introspective. And even if you're not introspective at that time, later on, when the consequences of your act come about, you will powerfully self-reflect. And then you will think what the Bhagavad Gita says, what Prabhupada says, what Guru says, what I have learned, what makes sense. But you will think about many things. Does that satisfy your question? Yeah. For now. Yes. Okay. Yes. What is your good name?
Vibhav.
Vibhav.
Yes.
Pleased to meet you.
So my question is, Hiranyakashipu, he was doing penance.
Penance, yes.
Yes, and he was doing for many years.
Yes.
So we do Krishna conscious for many years, and then we become devotees. But why Hiranyakashipu didn't become a devotee?
Oh, that's a very good question. Very smart. If I had some Mahaprasadam, I would give you now. I'll give you later. After this, don't leave this room. I'm gonna go get Mahaprasad and I'll give it to you. And to your friend. Are you guys friends?
Yes.
Okay. So your question was also very good in the first observation. What was the question? Just joking. I'm a jolly Swami. Yeah, that's a very good question. Because Hiranyakashipu did penances, and we also do some penances and austerity and like this. And we become devotees, hopefully. And Hiranyakashipu doesn't. As a matter of fact, he becomes a very evil person. This tells us that it's not enough merely to do a ritual. Whatever the ritual is, you know, fasting, meditating, chanting japa, it's not enough. What's really important is the intention with which we do these things. So if the intention is right, you see, intention is like, you know what rudder is in a boat?
Steering.
Yeah, it's just a little flap in the water. And then when you change at the end of the boat, and when you change the direction of the flap, the angle of the flap, the whole boat takes a turn. So the intention is like that. You know, the boat and the engine and the propeller, all of this is important because it propels the boat forward. But it is the rudder that changes the direction of the boat. So the intention with which we do things, even spiritual things, will determine in which direction will it go. And Hiranyakashipu had just evil intentions, very egocentric intentions. I mean, his intention was that he becomes the most powerful person ever. Just like, why? Just so that he could control everybody. So he could be monkey number one. You know. And he did become a monkey number one. But as always, just for some time. And so also if we chant Hare Krishna with wrong intentions, we don't get the right result. That's why we have concepts like the 10 offenses to the holy name. But the point is, if we perform an activity in Krishna consciousness, has to be done for the right reason, with the right attitude. So that's why we repeat all the time and time again, that we don't want anything but the love of God. And that is the sole reason why we do things. Yeah. And if that is true, then we make good spiritual advancement. Otherwise, we go a little bit towards Hiranyakashipu side. Perhaps, depends what the intention is. Yeah. Is that okay? All right. Okay. Any other thing this lovely afternoon? Okay, we have 2 more and then we're done. Yes.
So my question is that did Hiranyakashipu, does he get liberation?
Did Hiranyakashipu get liberation? To quote the Dharma, it is difficult to say. That's a joke. You see, that is also a very good question. Because Hiranyakashipu on the face value did not attain any kind of liberation, which is a journey to transcendence. But when we read the whole Bhagavatam, we get this super cosmic vision, where actually Hiranyakashipu was not really this Hiranyakashipu, but was yet another person who played the role of Hiranyakashipu in this grand scheme of things. So in that sense, he did attain liberation. But he never needed to attain it because he was liberated. Just for the time being, he had to play the role of an evil person. And many people throughout history have described this world as a stage upon which people come and play certain roles. Like, you know, you're a child now, but very likely you'll become a father or a husband to someone. But these are all just roles played for a time being. Take this recording and listen to it in 20 years. You can give me a donation then. Did that make sense?
So he got liberation.
Yes. Yes. Did you want to say something?
If we have time and
I don't know. I have no clue. I'm not familiar with time restrictions.
So until we are stopped,
I think we can have a last question.
Last question, and that's it. Okay.
Firstly, thank you very much, Maharaj, for putting up a very nice claim through which we can live our life very devoted. You are bringing the point that there is an immediate cause and there is a remote cause. Is the remote cause the Lord or ourselves? Because that was still not clear for me, because you said that it is our own illusion, that means it's we. If that is the case, then are we not the master? If we say it is the Lord, and is the Lord cause of our suffering? So
Very good. Yeah, very, very good. Very good question.
I'm getting Mahar.
Yeah. You too. No, that's very well noticed. Now, what's interesting. Well, he was asking who is actually, or what is actually remote cause and what is immediate cause. If we say that God is the remote cause, then then where does the personal responsibility lie? Yeah. Now, the interesting thing is that in Krishna consciousness, we say that an individual has personal freedom, but a limited one. And I don't know how much you follow, but there's a lot of discussion these days about the nature of freedom. And there are some people who claim that that an individual has no freedom, like whatsoever. That we're just a conglomeration of automated responses. And they make a philosophically very compelling arguments like this. But in Krishna consciousness, we say, yes, it is true. But we still have some free will. It's not a completely free will. So it's not a question of free will or no free will. It's a question of the amount of free will. And with some individuals who become so conditioned by matter, they actually almost completely lose free will. Even that little bit that otherwise they might be having. And so as such, what you have there is a balance of powers, in terms of a remote cause. And this is described in the Bhagavad Gita when Krishna discusses 5 factors of action. Interesting. So there are 5 factors of act, 5 factors that influence the outcome of any act. So for example, one factor is our own endeavor. The other element are the tools that we're using. The third element is the place where we're doing this. So you can imagine if we're cutting a wood, and you have one person cutting the wood with a sharp saw, but it is lazy as hell. And the other one is cutting the log underwater, which makes the movement very difficult. It has a very dull saw, but is endeavoring really hard. Who's going to cut first? So this is how these factors collide and make a final outcome. But what's interesting, one of the 5 factors is divine. God and God's agencies. And you find this in the Ramayana when Indrajit, so for God's sake. One of the sons of Ravana. He came out, he went out that day to battle Lord Ram. And he saw bad omens. Now these are not hallucinations, there's actually science to it. And he saw omens that indicated that he was going to lose the fight. And this is Indrajit, an educated person. He saw this and he knew, I better not go out and fight today. But then he said, I will go out and fight today, but I will overcome this by my own endeavor. And this is not a stupid statement. This is a very sophisticated thinking. Because he thought of 5 factors of action. And he saw that, you know, like the walls against him that day. But he felt, no, I will overcome it with my expertise and with my endeavor. He was wrong. He actually died that day on the battle. Yeah. But nevertheless, the claim is so that makes, you know, the dynamic a little more interesting. And then also, ultimately, really ultimately, God is the most remote cause. But that's the cause that created a situation where we do have some free play. And that free play puts some of the destiny in our own hands. And in this way we appear to be somewhat of a remote cause, but never the ultimate or absolute remote cause of things like that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I shall end here. Thank you. We'll hand the mic over to this nice Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna dear devotees. So thank you very much Maharaj. We are very, very grateful to you for this very, very enlightening talk. Like you make the first premise that our